Well, hey friends and neighbors, this is Chuck out at Sheridan Park Farms. Welcome back to the farm. I'm not sure what this video is going to end up being. I've just got the camera and I've turned it on, and we're at the sawmill. I was spooling through YouTube the other day, and I don't know how many of you watch him, Wrangler Star. A fellow by the name of Cody. He's out in the Pacific Northwest. I've watched him for years, taken some inspiration from him, like his content, sometimes just because of the controversy that he stirs up, and I think he does that. I think he does that intentionally. But he is doing a timber frame woodshed, and I noticed the other day he is way farther ahead almost than I am, and he just has started. But he's a West Coast guy. If you watch him, you know what that means. He's a West Coast guy, and he's getting somebody else to cut his timbers for his woodshed, whereas we are doing this all ourselves. And that's what we're going to work on today. I need about 5 more 4x6s to take down to my buddy Dan. He's going to do some floor joists, and he's going to do some seals and some plates for the porch. So I've got to get that stuff to him. So I've got about 5 4x6s left to go. I'm going to try to get those done today. I have just spent about 2 hours cleaning out here. I took 2 scoops of just bark and trash and junk out to the burn pile, and then I took 2 scoops of sawdust. But anyway, we're going to get to work. Got some more stuff from Saundra where she's been cooking. We're going to weave that in here as well. Folks really seem to like the cooking stuff that she does. So hang out with us for a little bit, and let's make some sawdust today.
Y'all, I'm doing something today that I hardly ever do. I won't use the word never because I have tried it, but it's been several years. I'm going to try to make bread. And Megan over at True Grit Appalachian Ways is one that has given me the courage to try this. She sent me a recipe last night, and I'll put that in the video description, and let's try making some bread. So the first thing I've done off camera is I've taken 1 cup of warm water, 2 teaspoons of active dry yeast, and 1 tablespoon of sugar, and I've put it in my bowl here. And I'm waiting about 5 minutes till this kind of gets foamy, and then we're going to put 2 cups of flour in it, and I'm going to throw it in my stand mixer over here to do the kneading because I'm just too lazy to do it. So let's see how this works out.
All right, our first candidate on the mill. I dug through my logs out here. I'm getting pretty slim on good stuff to mill. And like I said in that last video, I talked to my buddy Matt, who's the guy that we buy a lot of logs off of, and he brings a bunch of stuff over here. And I told him that we need some more logs. We need some pine, we need some poplar, we can use oak, maple, whatever he comes up with. But this is one of the last good ones that I had out there. I'm about out. I think it's white pine. I think it's white pine. Little knotty, little. It's not very pretty. Not very pretty. So down here on the operator end, we've got the pith at about 6 3/4, 7 inches, something like that. And then down here on the far end, we're at about 8. So we're going to raise this end up just a little bit. So some of you watch Sawmill channels, you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that may not, when we talk about the pith, we talk about the center, the very center part of the wood. The log. That's the most unstable, and we want to try to center that. We don't want to spread that out through our boards or through our timbers or whatever we're doing, if we can help it. On timber framing, where we're doing larger, beefier, chunkier pieces, it's okay to have that in there. And when you're doing timber framing, anything larger, if I remember right, don't quote me on this, go find some good resources. Anything larger than a 6x6, we want to center that pith. We want to try to center that in the middle of the timber. Anything smaller, it's okay if it's not. These are 4x6s, so it'll be okay if they're not. I'm hoping that we can get maybe four out of this. Now the dogs are barking. Hoping maybe we can get 4 out of this. But anyway, when I'm talking about centering the pith, what we want to do is we want to get it the same distance off the bunk on this end as it is on this end. We will take a cut, then we will flip it over, and then we will level it out. Got to make sure we drop our toe boards. We'll raise the toe board on the operator end just a little bit here, so that we can get that pith up. So let's get to work on it.
Okay, so our mixture here is kind of foamy. I'll show you that. So you see how it's kind of gotten foamy here. So now I'm going to put in a teaspoon of salt, a tablespoon of olive oil, and 2 cups of flour. And now I'm going to mix these together just till it starts coming away from the edges of the bowl. So this is what it looks like now, just coming away from the edges of the bowl. And now I'm going to take it over here to my stand mixer, and we're going to add a 1/2 cup of flour at a time until we get the consistency that we're looking for. Guess I better plug it in.
About 8 right there, so that's about even. I'll double check it, but that should get us real close. Alright y'all, I don't want to claim to be a sawmill tutorial, but I just thought it might be interesting to go through and talk about some of the controls and how we think about what we're doing whenever we're sawing here. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to tension the blade. So these blades have got a big long band saw on them, runs between 2 wheels, and we've got to tension our blade to a specific tension. And for this particular mill, it calls for the blade to be between 2,800 and 3,000 psi. Now, where these blades have been loose and been sitting out here all night, it's cooled off. The blade itself is cooled off. So what I'll do is I'm going to start the mill, and I will fire the blade up a couple of times and let it cycle. And what it's doing is it's heating that blade up. As that blade heats up, it stretches, and it will cause our blade tension to go down. So we'll run the blade, we'll cycle the blade a couple times, and we'll come back and retension the blade. See, I've tensioned to 3,000, and just as it's sitting here, I see it's easing down. So that blade's stretching a little bit already. So let's fire it up. We'll turn the blade on a time or two. All right, like I say, I'm gonna start it up, and when I engage the blade, you'll hear it. You'll know what it sounds like. Watch the needle. Watch that needle spool backwards there. All right, so that should do it. So y'all see what I'm talking about. Whenever we spool this blade up and it starts running and it gets hot, it starts to stretch. But you know what doesn't stretch when it gets hot? A pair of Camel City Mill socks. These are the best socks that I've ever put on my feet. And one of the things I like about them, I could go on for days about these socks. One of the things I like the best is when you pull them up, they don't stretch and slide down your calf. So many socks I've had in the past, put them on, put my boots on, take about 3 or 4 steps, and my socks have just fallen down, bunched up around my ankles, and they're just awful. They're just terrible. Made with Ironside merino wool right here in North Carolina. These are the best boot socks that I've ever worn, hands down. If you're working a sawmill, you're farming, construction, pouring concrete, building houses, fire, EMS, law enforcement, you're on your feet for any reason all day long. Teachers even, if you're teaching, you need a pair of these socks because you're up and on your feet all day. They keep your feet cool in the summer, warm in the winter. They don't fall down. They stay up like they should. These are absolutely the best socks out there on the market, and they come with a 10-year guarantee. If you wear a hole in the toe or in the sock, I've got so many socks out there. They're the most religious socks I've ever seen in my life. They've got holes in the toes, in the heels. I've wore them out in about 3 months. They're just awful. 10-year guarantee. If you wear a hole in these things in the toe or the heel, Camel City Mill is going to replace them. No other sock on the market has got a 10-year guarantee like that. Cushioned in the toe, cushioned in the heel. They provide some nice compression on your calves. I like that during the day. At the end of the day, my feet and me as a whole are not nearly as tired as if I'm wearing some of those crappy, cheap socks that I bought in the past. Use code Sheraton Park Farms to save 10% off of my favorite work sock, Camel City Mill. Get you some. You're not going to regret it. Best sock on the market, hands down.
So the recipe calls for 2.5 to 3 cups of flour. So I had put 2 cups in there. Now I've just put a half. So we'll see. Let this work a minute and see how it goes. See if we need to add any more. So it's still just a little bit sticky. I'm going to add a little more, probably not a half a cup. We'll try a quarter. So here's what my machine is doing, and we're going to let this go for about 5 minutes.
All right, so that first cut is my opening face, and for what I'm doing, I normally you want to pick the best looking face to do your opening cut on. I did not, because of what we're doing. We're just doing rough cut 4x6s. So we've taken this off. Now we've got a nice flat side to work on. And what we'll do is we'll drop this toe board. A little bug damage, but that'll be all right. We're going to drop this toe board right here that's under it, right down here, flip it over, and then we'll cut it again, and then we will have us a flat square from two sides cant to work with. All right, so first thing I'll do is I'll release my clamp, drop my clamp down. I'm going to go ahead and drop my toe board. I have done this a couple times, and if you don't drop your toe board, you end up with some kind of goofy shaped thing. You can't get anything square on it. And then we're going to just turn the lock. Sometimes they can be a little cranky. There we go. Now, one thing I'm going to do real quick, I'm going to raise this thing up off the bunks, and we're going to make sure we don't have any bark on our bunks, because if we do, that'll cause us to not sit flat. So we're going to make sure that we're clear. See, like right there a little bit. Make sure we're clear. Okay, we're good. All right, set her back down. Another good use of those toe boards is to lift those things up so that you can clean out the bunks underneath them. All right, so now we got her good and flat. We're going to drop our back stops down just. Well, I ain't gone. Drop our back stops down. There we go. All right, so we got her back level. Now we'll take another opening cut along the top of this thing so that we got two flat sides. And it's got some big knots on it, so we'll take us an opening face cut right here so that we got two sides that are parallel to each other. Thing is ugly, boy.
Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. And the dough has really come together quite well, as you can see here. The sides of my bowl here are very clean, so that helps me to know that it's ready to come out. So we're going to put this in a greased bowl. And we're going to put it in a warm spot and let it set for a couple hours until it doubles in size. And I don't know why I always do this, but I start trying to make bread in the cold weather. Why, I don't know. And so I've had to turn a little heat on here in the house. It was 64 degrees in here when we got up this morning. So I'm going to turn this over and get it coated in this oil. And then I'm going to put some plastic wrap over top of it, and then we're going to let it sit in the bathroom where I've got a heater going for a little while till it doubles in size, a couple of hours.
Okay, if I have done this right, my blade height on this second cut was 10.5 inches, I think. If I have done this right, this log should have two parallel sides that are exactly 10.5 inches from each other. And the way that we test that is we're going to measure right here and see what we got. And we got 10.5 inches right there. And we're going to go down here and we're going to measure again. And we've got 10.5 inches. So we have got two parallel sides. Now, we're going to flip it up. And I'll show you what we'll do next. Okay, release our clamp. We'll bring our back stops up. And then we're going to take our clamp and we're going to flip this thing up on its side. I think if we can get enough under it. Okay, we got it up on its side. Now what we want to do is check for square. So we want to make sure that this face is square to this bunk. If we can get this face right here square to that bunk, in other words, we've got a perfect 90-degree angle right here. When we take the top off, then we flip it again, we should, theoretically speaking, have a perfectly square cant that we can now take square 4x6s off of, which makes construction a whole lot easier. So we'll take the framing square, set it on our bunk, and push it up against our cant. And we are not square. Let me show y'all what I mean. All right, we can see daylight right back here. So that means the top of this cant needs to go that way. I've discovered sometimes if I don't have too tight a clamp on, I can take that clamp and raise it and it will push it up. But we got to make sure that we stay flat on the mill. All right, let's get her square. Test it again. Got a little bark in our way right there, so we go down here to the next one. All right, we still need to go up just a little bit with the top. Now, I pushed it in from the bottom and it looked like it moved. There it is. Let me show y'all. I got junk right there. Give that thing sit right there for just a second. Let's show y'all here. Yeah, boy. She looks pretty good right there. Looks pretty good. So we're going to go with that. All right. We'll take our top cut next. Then we'll flip it over. Take the last slab off of it. Slab being the bark cut. That's what I call them. Slab being the bark cut. And then we should have us a square cant.
And there we go.
The thing goes so much better when you turn your camera on. So I took a cut and then I flipped it twice so that the flat side where we just gauged our square is now on the bottom. So next cut, we're going to take this top slab cut off, and that should give us a square. And when I say square, I don't mean 4 equal sides. I mean a 90-degree on each corner square. We're going to take a top cut, we'll take a slab cut off. That should give us a square cant, meaning that we've got 4 90-degree corners, or 2 sides that are parallel to each other twice. Left and right, up and down, those should be parallel to each other. We now have 2 sides that are parallel to each other twice, top, bottom, left, and right. I'm not exactly sure what my cant size is. Looks like we're at about 10 1/4 by 10 1/2. Okay, all right. My strategy, and I would be real interested for those of you that have sawmills to hear what your strategy is. My strategy has been on the timber framework that we've been doing is to get as large a cant as I can and then start trimming down and getting the wane off and saving boards if I can. Here, I'm going to flip this thing up. You can do it either way. If you cut like it is now, we'll start trimming this down from the top, or if you flip it over, you'll trim it down from that top, depending on how you got it oriented on the mill. So I've got a little bit of wane down here. This bottom side, this corner here is pretty clean. The bottom corner back here that I'm looking at is pretty clean. This looks like this is where the mess is, and a little bit on that right there. So to maximize this, I think what I'll do is I'll flip it up and we'll cut this down. What I'm looking for right now is I'm looking for a multiple of 4 or 6. So if I had an 8x6, I could cut that in half, and that would give me 2 4x6s. If I had a 4x12, I could cut that in half. If I had an 8x12, cut that in half twice. So I'm thinking multiples here in order to get my 4x6s. I don't know if any of that makes any sense at all. Maybe it's just the way my brain works. Been dropped on my head too many times or something. But so I'm going to flip this up. Because I have around 10.5 here, we'll flip it up and we'll try to come down to 8. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to flip it up and clean this up and get me as clean a can as I can and see where we're at on our measurements. But I'm trying to get to some incremental multiple of 4x6 so that I can get more than one out of the cant. You know what I mean? Oh, and before anybody says anything about hearing protection, Saundra got me these the other day. This is not a sponsored video at all. These are those new AirPod Pros, I think. I think that's what they are, AirPod Pros. These actually serve as noise reducers and hearing protection. So that's what I wear. And it's interesting, when I put these in, I can hear everything around me fine, but when I fire that mill up, it really dampens that exterior noise that I'm hearing. So that's what I'm using for hearing protection. If you're interested in a pair of these, I'll leave a link in the description down below, but I really like them. They're pretty good hearing protection.
All right, we're back now. We're ready to punch our dough down. But you see, it's come up very nicely, and we're ready to bring it out, punch it down, turn it into a loaf. And I'm forming this into a rectangle, just like this. And then I'm going to roll it away from me. And I'm going to pinch the ends, turn it in up under itself. Just like that. And then I'm going to put it on my pan. And form it the way I want, the way I want it to look. And I'm going to take a knife and cut some slits in the top of it. All right. Now I've got my slits cut in it, and I'm going to let it sit here and rise again for about another hour, and then we'll bake it.
All right, so my friend Dan showed me this. I should have been doing it, so I pulled it out and I was playing with it. It gives me some more options. I have a piece of, I've got more. I've got a piece of, I think it's 1/2-inch plywood that's cut out into 4x6. I've also got some 8x8s, 2x4s, different sizes. But what we can do is we can lay this up here, and it gives us a little bit better visual representation of what we can actually get out of this cant. Now, the top side is ugly, so we know we're going to lose off the top. So let's just start down here in this corner. So I can get one there. Then if I flip it up, I know I can get two. So I can get 2 4x6s off of that. But I've got all this material up here. Remember, we don't have to worry about our pith being centered. So if we come over here, we see how wide this thing is. We should be able to get another one off of there. So if we come down here, because we're going to lose a bunch up here at the top, should be able to get 3 out of this. So what I'm going to do is, so that's 4 inches. That's 4 inches, so that's 8. Actually, it's a little more, but that's 8. So we're going to cut this cant down to 8 inches right here. Then, because all we need is 6, we'll take and flip this can up, and we'll take 6 off right here. Remember, this will be gone, so we'll take 6 off right here. We'll lay this to the side. We'll have to trim that down, and then we can get us 2 out of what's left. So, glad I pulled that out, but that gives me a little bit better visual representation to lay this out and figure out, okay, what can we get out of this thing, and where can it come from, so that we're maximizing the cant and not wasting anything. So we're going to try that. If I waste it, I've just wasted a log. There's more standing in the woods. No more laying around, not many laying around here right now, but let's see what we can do with it. Let's see if that maximizes what we're trying to get out of this thing. came down here this end to look at this. So let's see what we've got here. So this is after I went back and cut it down to 6. So right here we can get, I can flip this up. So I can get 1, 2. I can get 2 4x6s out of that. This, we can trim it down to, we'll flip this up, trim it down to 6, and we should get an extra 2x4 out of that. So we've been able, I think we're going to be able to get 2 4x6, excuse me, 1, 2, 3 4x6s and 1 2x4 out of this. Could I have gotten some boards out of that cut that I made to drop that thing down to 8 inches? Maybe. It would have required some edging to get those, and we probably would have only ended up with, I don't know, 1 or 2, and they would only been 6 or 8 inch boards. Is that maximizing? Absolutely, it's maximizing, but part of it is consideration of time.
Okay, we've let our bread bake for 20 minutes, and now we're going to take it out, give it a little egg wash, and then put it in for 2 or 3 more minutes. And isn't that beautiful? I'll tell you what, I have to give Megan props on this one. I am not a bread baker, and she has helped me figure it out. I'll put a little egg wash on this. All right, back in the oven for about 3 minutes.
Okay, got off just a little bit, but I don't think it's enough to really hurt. So as you can see, I've got this one timber here on the right that is probably, I don't know, it's not 1/4 of an inch thicker than this one. Okay, so let's flip them up the other way and we'll look at them the other way. So this way we are, man, if that's an 1/8 off, if that's a 16th off, I'm Santa Claus. But you can see this one's a little bit thicker than this one. Now this is how, these are floor joists. This is how these will be oriented. They'll be sitting down in pockets. So I could either trim this one off just a little bit because it is a little bit more than 4 inches. Or we can wait until we're dropping these down in the pocket and open the pockets up a little bit to make sure that it sits down in there. Or we could even, you know, we could trim a little bit off of this with the with the chisel whenever it comes time to drop it in, which won't take but just a second. So I'm going to call these good. No, they're not perfect, but that is part of the beauty of timber framing, is that we're using square rule, so your timbers don't have to be perfect. You can work around some imperfections on your timbers, and that's what we'll have to do with these. So I got me 2 4x6s there. I've got, what is this thing? It is 4x8. 4x8. So we're going to throw this thing up on the mill, and we're going to take 2 inches off of that, and that'll give us a 2x4 as well. So about to get this thing done. There it is, a third 4x6 and an additional 2x4. I think we maximize that one as much as we can. All right, that gives me 3. Got 2 more to do. Probably not going to go into as much detail on those, but let's get this off, put it up. We'll move on to the next one.
Okay, it's been about 4 minutes, and we're going to take this out and have a look. How about that? Isn't that pretty? So I'll have to give all the credit to Megan for this, over at True Grit Appalachian Ways. She is the reason that I tried this. She gave me the confidence to try it, and here it is. Isn't that great?
All right, y'all. I decided that it would not be. I recorded some of it. But I decided not to just bore y'all to death with that mill just running back and forth while I cut the rest of these 4x6s. So I've got enough. Ended up with, gosh, was it 10? 3. Ended up with 10 that I need to load up and take down to Dan. These will be joists. I don't remember if I said this or not. These are going to be joists for the porch. And so what I'm going to do, I've got some, I know it's loud. I've got some old tin from where we tore down this barn up here. So I'm just going to cover this stuff up and try to keep it dry. And then sometime next week, we're going to run this down to Dan. And he'll cut. So what he'll do on these, they'll cut to length. I don't know if y'all should be able to see. Yeah, y'all should be able to see this. We'll cut these down to length, 10 feet. And then there will be a scoop. We'll cut a scoop in these. And then this will, that's probably not, we'll cut a scoop in it. And then this will sit down in a pocket that is cut into one of those seals, those 8-baits that's laying in there. That will sit down in there, and that's your joist. That's the floor joist on each end. That's all it needs. You don't have to screw it. You can if you want to, but you don't have to screw it in with those big timberlock screws. You don't have to nail it in, nothing. The weight of this joist sitting down in that pocket is what will hold it in place. And then we'll come along and we'll just nail our flooring, which I'll probably do. The porch will be, it'll be an oak. We'll do it in some kind of oak. I've got some chestnut oak. I've got some post oak, little bit of white oak over there. I've got some red oak. Probably would not do the porch in red oak because it's not quite as, what's bright? It's not quite as rot and weather resistant as like a post oak, a white oak, or a chestnut oak would be. So we'll probably do that since it'll be exposed outside, but it'll look nice. So that's how the floor system works. I know it's kind of hard to imagine, but these just sit down with that scoop in those joist pockets, and then we just nail the flooring right on top of it for the porch. That's all it'll take. So I'm gonna get this covered up the rest of the way, and lay that like that. I'm gonna get this covered up the rest of the way, and I think I'm gonna go to the house. And I believe Saundra's been making bread. I think that's what she was gonna film, or what she was doing. So I'm gonna go to the house and try a little bit of that bread that she's been making. But like we always say, please keep us in your prayers. May God bless you and your families. We'll see you on the next video. Thanks.